Hello, my name is Elizabeth Matka. This is the second in our series of seminars which offer an opportunity for dialogue, exploring, challenging and critiquing historical and contemporary notions of mental health. In each seminar, an individual who has made a global contribution to the area of mental health will be invited to converse with an interdisciplinary audience, including service users and carers, educators, psychologists, psychiatrists, nurses, social workers and academics. In this second seminar, we are very pleased to welcome Richard Warner. Richard gives an overview of the ideas about schizophrenia that he has developed as a psychiatrist and researcher for over 30 years. We hope you find this first edited section an interesting introduction to the film of the complete seminar.
This is really an exciting opportunity to talk to people from several disciplines, and to service users and carers I hope are here as well. And that's the kind of audience that I'm used to talking to, enjoy talking to. And I am happy to take questions and comments and so on as I go along to try and make this more of a conversation than just a lecture. So, 20th century outcome studies in schizophrenia. What I found when I dug around in those libraries was European and North American studies from 1904 onwards, and with my recent edition of the book that I wrote, which is the third edition of Recovery from Schizophrenia, takes us up to the year 2000 and also now includes some recent Japanese studies. Admission cohorts from the late 1880s. So the first study was published in 1904, but people were admitted in the 1880s. So you'll see these subjects categorized according to when they were admitted, because on the principle that what you do in the early phases of the illness is what actually determines what the course is going to be subsequently. From there to the early 1990s. And these cohorts of patients clearly had a mixed duration of illness and various subtypes of illness, but actually quite a large number of the patients were in the early stages of their illness, which is quite important, because if you only get people after they've been ill for 10 years or so, you've obviously lost all the patients who recovered early on in the illness. So you need to have a fair number of early stage patients, which is in fact a large proportion of them were in that group. The follow-up of those patients in these various studies was anywhere from 1 year to 40 years was the longest after their original admission. These are all admission cohorts, or they're not people picked up at discharge from hospital, but admission. And this is a minor point. The dead were included as not recovered in these data, which is technically relevant because more people with schizophrenia died in those early years of the century. And so if you include them as not recovered, it makes those early cohorts theoretically look worse than they need to look, because they might in fact have been recovered. And here's the outcome results as they appeared in the first edition of my book, Recovery from Schizophrenia, sort of just to keep you on tenterhooks and be thinking about what is the update going to show. Excitingly, there's always been a 20% complete recovery rate from schizophrenia since long before there were any effective treatments, except during the Great Depression, when everything got worse and people were being confined to institutions for very long periods of time, and there was absolutely nothing in the way of work for people to be discharged to. If they were to leave the family, they'd just become hobos. There has always been something like a 40% social recovery rate. That means people are functioning independently. They're earning their own livings and living independently after having been diagnosed with schizophrenia. And you see that after the Great Depression, there's a big increase in the number of people who were out of hospital at the time of follow-up. Now, the interesting thing is if you look in the psychiatric textbooks at outcome from schizophrenia, most of the writers represent this, what I call onward and upward school of the view of psychiatry always adding to our value in helping people with schizophrenia. So if you ignore that period, you can make an argument that things got better from the 30s onwards in the treatment of schizophrenia and outcome, and that's the way the textbooks usually represent it. But if you include these early studies of Bloilers, for example, and other people from this period, you'll see that in fact it's not an onward or upward trend at all. It's a flat trend with a big decline during the Great Depression. So conclusions you can draw from this: the antipsychotic drugs are introduced here. It had no effect on the complete long-term outcome from schizophrenia. Another conclusion, people are out of hospital a lot more, but there's no improvement in the capacity of those people to function independently, having been moved out of hospital. At the time, when I was working in a therapeutic community here, we somehow thought that if you discharge people from hospital, it had a magical effect, that people automatically got better and better and better. Well, in fact, that was pure magical thinking, and it doesn't happen that way at all.